So I'm a dance artist, as Daniela said, and I'm also a candomblé practitioner for about 14 years. I'm not initiated yet, but I've been experiencing the life in the terreiros for 14 years. And this experience in the terreiro has informed a lot my academic research and my dance career as well. And my dance career has informed also my experience within the terreiro. So in this speech today, I would like to share with you, invite you to think about religion as a embodied practice. And I would like also to invite you to navigate through what I call transitional physicality. Beyond this idea of terreiros corporeality that we are gonna talk about a little bit later, we are gonna talk about also the idea of transitional physicality. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So, and I will read a piece of my dissertation for you, a piece where I focus on this idea of terreiros, corporeality, and transitional physicality. But before I start reading, I think it's important for you to know a little bit how I approach some terms and concepts here. So first, I would like to talk about performance in general, because as I am also a dancer, when you think about performance, sometimes you can imagine this way of perform, which is through dance or theater, in artistic way, in which we use another way to sometimes represent things and characters and things. So today we are not talking about artistic performance. We are talking about ritualistic performance, which happens in a different context and involves a lot the body, but we will be thinking about this dancing that is moved informed by that specific context. Okay, including the talking about the performance of the body that is possessed by the orisha, the body that is called sometimes a horse, for the orisha to mount on that, to present the divinity, to present herself or himself through that body for a while, dance and communicate through gestures and movements and rhythm, and then to leave that body, and that body comes back as only a practitioner. Or you will know as well this specific practitioner who is able to possess the orisha is called Iau. So these are already some terms that you are gonna get more familiar throughout my speech, but now I would like to introduce you to these terms. Another thing that I believe is important for you to know before I start to read my piece is a little bit about the candomblé ceremony, the public ceremony. Candomblé is also called xiré. And the xiré, it means in Yoruba, it means to play, you know, to dance and to play. It means xiré. And in the xiré, we have two specific or two different moments. We go through more than two, but I would like to highlight these two moments just for you to start to understand a little bit more about the context that I will describe for you. So xiré is a is a name that is attributed to the sequence of ritualistic dances in candomblé. So this is also a moment in which we have a big circle, and the practitioner is used to do a reverence. They get into this space, that sacred space, so they do the reverence to the specific places in that sacred space. They do the reverence to the elders and take the bless to the elders. So they are usually organized from the oldest to the youngest in a circle. And they also do the reverence to the orishas in an order that is pre-established and varies according to each tradition, but usually starts with Eshu and finishes with Orisha or Oshala. So there are about 3, 4, sometimes 5 songs and rhythms and dances that are made to each Orisha in the big pantheon. Like we do the reverence to all them before start the actual like process of the orishas come through the bodies and be part of this ceremony. So after this time, we have the moment in which the atabaques, or the drums, and the organs in alabês, who are the drums players, the drummers, call the orishas to the earth. And the orishas come to the earth through the bodies of Iaos and start dancing. They go inside, they change, they put some costumes, they get some garments, some tools that are specific related to them, to each orisha, and they come to dance with the community within that circle. So we have different roles in the Candomblé religion, but what I'm describing here are going to talk more about this experience of testimony, a Iao transitioning from this place of a Iao's body and the Orisha, Oshala. And what I start to tell you and to talk about is an experience before I enter as a practitioner in Candomblé. So, but first, just take a look at this image. This image is an image from a terreiro, in which we have the big circle. This is the first moment that I described for you, in which we have some persons like reverencing the Yalorisha or Babalorisha, the eldest of the house. Others are following and are just doing this this part of the process, you know. They will, after this, start dancing with for each orisha, from Eshu to Oshala. And I have also an image to share with you, which shows the second moment I'm talking about here, which is the moment in which the orisha possesses the body, or the Iao has his or her body transformed by the presence of the orisha. So here we have on the left 2 orishas called Oshun, related with the beauty, with the gold, with fertility. And we have on the right side up, we have 2 Oshalas dancing, more Oshagians, which are the young Oshala, because Oshala has Oshalufan, we have Oshalufan and Oshagian. Oshagian is the youngest, and Oshalufan is the oldest. We will see him in the next. Okay. So now I'll start reading. If something went wrong, please just let me know. You can open your mic and let me know because I'm not seeing you right now. Okay, I'm just seeing the slide. So please let me know if you can't hear or something goes wrong. So among the most impressive memories I have from my visits to a candomblé terreiro before I became a practitioner is the enduring image of a young, thin, agile man moving slowly with his back hunched, walking with difficulty, his muscles trembling like an old person's. The man's moving body, which at the beginning of the ceremony or during the first part of the shire, moved easily across the space with precision in its gestures, transferring its weight with quick muscular responses and lightness, did not seem like the same body I observed later when the man was dancing under the guidance or possession of the Orisha Oxalá. Oxalá is known as the oldest Orisha, the father of all other Orishas, and his presence physically demonstrates such wisdom and aged experience. Thus, the young man's performance differed considerably from that of Oxalá. In observing the contrast of the young, light physically of the practitioner embodying the energy of Oxalá and moving as an aged man, I began to reflect on the interconnectedness and interdependence between the spiritual and the physical in African-derived religions, in terms of the process of corporeal training necessary to enable bodily transformation. The ability to perform completely discrete movements in terms of intensity, cadence, muscular energy, trajectory traversed in space, and other elements that are combined and engaged within a dance to create nuanced movement can be observed in candomblé practitioner. Both members who are able to embody or be possessed by the Orisha and members who have never undergone initiation or possession transition between a gestural repertoire used in their everyday life outside the terreiro and a gestural repertoire used inside the terreiro. I refer to these physical transformations here as a transitional physicality. Through an Iao's dance performance, under the manifestation of an Orisha, for example, it is possible to see a body moving with the flow of water and imagine this water running in a river or undulating in the ocean when we see Oshun or Iemanjá. The quotidian body can transition from fast, fragmented, high-intensity movements performed in daily rituals to fluid, measured movements during the religious manifestation of Iemanjá or Oshun. The Iao's body thus transitions from typical everyday movements to undulations and expressions characteristic of moving water. Although every Orisha's manifestation involves modifications to the way each specific body performs human and diving movements, the example of the differences I observed in the performance by the man and by Oxalá, who is also an Iao, and Oxalá within the terreiro is worth noting for the contrast in movement expressions. In dance wisdom, embodied knowledge in Voodoo, Cuban Yoruba, and Bahia Candomblé, Yvonne Daniel also uses the contrasting example of a 14-year-old girl who experienced her first transformation in Cuban Yoruba house. The author witnesses what she calls, unquote, the vacillations between a frightened, humble young girl and an audacious and fiery dancing Orisha, Shango. The characteristics Daniel describes contrast not only in terms of movement and muscular engagement, but also in terms of attitude. Daniel's and my own observations of spiritual manifestations through physical bodies in Cuban Yoruba and Bahian Candomblé led me to raise the following questions. How can the same material expressive body transition between such different attitudes, postures, movement speeds, and degrees of strength, intensity, and mobility, among other factors that create movement nuances with such precision in its performance? What is the history of movement experienced by that Iao's body inside and outside the terreiro in order to allow that contrasting transformation? How has that body been prepared for that transformation, transition in terms of physicality? As a trained dancer, my curiosity comes from the awareness of how much training, repetition, and time is necessary for a body to perform those movement nuances with precision. When considering that Terreiro members' daily experiences vary considerably in terms of the type of physical engagement they have in their routines outside the terreiro, this curiosity becomes even greater. A lawyer, a cook, an engineer, a historian, a musician, and a dancer, for instance, are involved in activities that require different levels of corporeal engagement in their daily lives. So this observation leads me to suggest that the embodiment of the Orishas' ways of presenting themselves, or undulating like water or hunched like Oxalá, by imprinting the features of natural elements onto the moving body, is only possible due to the preparation that every practitioner undergoes before and during initiation in their everyday rituals of the terreiro. In other words, I argue that alongside and within the process of spiritual initiation and the intervention of the spiritual force on the practitioner's physicality, there is also a process of training the material body. And advocating for this potential training observed within the candomblé rituals and the space of the terreiro, I reinforce Rosângela Silvestre's perception of a body training process during initiation. As Silvestre declares in an interview with Barbara Browning that in candomblé, initiates go through an elaborate process of training, not merely learning the choreographies of the orishas, but learning the mythology, the songs, even washing the garments and preparing the food necessary for the ceremonies. And all these processes of training prepare the body to let itself be carried away. Se deixar levar, in Portuguese. In highlighting storytelling and the learning of not literally dance activities as part of the practitioner's preparation for the spiritual transformation, or for what she describes as a process of letting itself be carried away, or se deixar levar, Silvestre adds even more complexity to the concept of transitional physicality I propose here. In Silvestre's view, the training of the body to dance before and under the guidance of an orisha or to actually transition between movement dynamics, goes beyond the exploration of physical abilities. It also involves the development of a knowledge around the stories behind the movements, entities, and activities that coexist with the dancing body during the ritualistic performance within the terreiro. Nevertheless, the transition of physicality and training process are neither limited to iaos, the ones who are able to perform under the guidance of an orisha, nor to the experience of initiation. This is what I think. Why in the above quote, Silvestre illuminates the complexity of training for candomblé initiates, I, as an Abian who did not yet have access to the initiation rituals, observe how this complexity in training that facilitates material transitions or the physical transitions can also be observed outside the process of initiation or by non-initiates. I argue that terreiro corporealities are not only built, unquote, built from the spiritual union that results from the primordial intervention of the divinity, as Susana Martins says, or when the orisha manifests in the body of an iao. These corporealities, the terreiro corporealities, are also formed by quotidian or daily rituals fundamental to the diverse bodies that arrive in that space. By diverse bodies, I mean bodies with a multiplicity of outside experiences and previous corporeal abilities. These bars perform greetings, prayers, cooking, sweeping, and other gestures involved in the daily life of a candomblé community. It is from the combination of dancing by divine entities and the practitioners' gestures and movement performances that these particular corporealities and aspects of this bodily experience emerge. So in emphasize the two ways in which bodily behaviors are observed within the specific territory, symbolic system, and cultural environment of a terreiro, this bodily reality appears as a, in Foster's words, tangible and substantial category of cultural experience. That's why I call candomblé as a culture. As one example of quotidian behaviors in the terreiro, I emphasize the simple greeting exchange, in which the younger practitioner curves the torso forward with hands coupled together, palms facing upward, while the older practitioner keeps his or her body higher, making an almost imperceptible inclination of the torso and pronouncing the specific words, they are blessings. The whole body is involved in this simple gesture of greeting that is repeated several times throughout the day while one is present in that space. Repetition creates habit and embodiment in that body. So a body fully immersed in that specific reality. Another example of particular quotidian gestures that represent this corporealities aspect is the greeting blessed to the of the Yalorisha or Babalorisha, the priestess or priest of that community, and other practitioners who occupy positions in the terreiro hierarchy that are required. So in this act, Yaos and Abians engage in the movement of Ika for the guidance of masculine orishas, or Adobali for the feminine orishas. In both cases, Yao and Abians touch their foreheads on the floor to show reverence and respect to the oldest practitioners in the space. They engage with specific movement variations according to the Orisha who guides each Ori, feminine or masculine, as I mentioned before. And the starting point is always a bond position. In the Ika, the practitioner touches his or her forehead to the floor, then projects the whole body forward to be in touch with the floor, lying face down. Then the practitioner moves the hips backward to sit on the heels, moves the torso forward again to touch the floor with his or her forehead, and lastly, kisses the right hand of the Yalorisha or Babalorisha. as Sabino and Lodi described, it can also be followed by a pao, which is this movement.
Agatha,
Yes.
we are on time. I don't know if you still want to show the video so we can have few time for questions. If you can wrap up.
Okay. The last one. So the movement variations described above are generally not practiced outside the terreiro and configure a specific bodily vocabulary and cultural experience that we carry to our daily lives, and which transforms us also as individuals in a society. So I believe that this corporeality, this terreiro corporeality, comes with the practitioners to outside the terreiro. And it has informed a lot social, political, and activism in Brazil. So I believe that it's all involved with body behavior, gestures, and everything. Yeah, so I'm a dancer, so the body guides me through this research, and my gaze always like focus on this religion as a embodied practice, as I said before. So please, I'm open to answer any question or to hear any comment that you have. It will be lovely.
We have few minutes for questions, guys. This class ends at 10:50. If you are my student in the subsequent class, I will give you a minute to go once we finish so you can go to the restroom, pick up some food. So any questions for Dr. Oliveira? Dr. Oliveira, if it's okay with you, I can make that link available as well for students, and you can send me your PowerPoint if you want to, so I can share with them for this class. So any questions? Dr. Mary.
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry I was arrived a little late. I had another engagement. I wanted to ask you, Doctor, about the movement of the circle itself, that it's counterclockwise. Could you elaborate on the significance of the counterclockwise movement?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about it. It is the idea of continuity of this community is related with this counterclock movement. So always when you go, even if we are thinking about other kind of performances that happen outside the terreiro, that are more considered profane instead of sacred, or more in the secular relation, we think about this underclock circle as a way of continuity, as this spiral movement as well. I don't know if you could see in this movement, they start as a circle, but then it becomes a spiral. And also every part, every ritual has this underclock, usually 3 times, and then things go beyond this. But yeah, it has to do with ancestrality and continuity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Mertz. Any other questions to Dr. Oliveira? Let me see, hands here. Jamal.
How long are these ceremonies typically going on for?
How long the ceremony? It varies. Usually like 4 or 5 hours. I think this is the more, it depends on the ceremony. When we have ceremonies that are related with the passage of some oldest. These sometimes not directly, but it takes longer, and it involves like some days, 7 days of ritual. But each ritual, it's about like 4, 5, 6 hours. But egunguns, as for example, is a ritual that sometimes take longer, a day or something like that.
Tiffany, sorry, Jamal, last question. Oh, thank you, Jamal. Tiffany.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oliveira, for being here and sharing your research with us. I just had a quick question. Is there any preparation or ritual for the physical body needed before these ceremonies in order for the body to embody the Orisha?
Or I'd like to add to that also, is there any kind of chemicals or mushrooms or teas or any kind of stimulants that are taken in this process?
Sorry, Tiffany, I couldn't hear the beginning of your question.
Ela perguntou se existe alguma preparação, tipo um exercício, algum tipo de preparação corpórea que a pessoa que vai receber o orixá tem que fazer antes. E ele perguntou se existe algum tipo de substância que é usada para facilitar que a incorporação ocorra.
I will answer Randolph before, because no, we don't have this kind of tea or anything that we eat for this transition between the body and the Orisha coming. The drums are the ones who call the Orisha. So the drums facilitate this trance state that the body, goes through. So usually are the drums. We have food related and cooked to the Orishas, but the Orishas is already there when they eat it. And it's not related with any kind of substance that help the trance. And about the preparation, it's interesting because I cannot say that much because I'm not initiated. So I don't know the whole ritual. But I know that inside the Terreiro, I'm learning a lot. And my body is has been already trained to this process when it comes. You know what I mean? And I know that there's a moment when there are open rituals that happen, open to the community. Which happens inside, I don't see, but sometimes when the preparation is happening before the public initiation, there are few rituals that everyone participates. And in these rituals, we have the process of the Orisha be trained in terms of the dance. So some Ekedi usually teach the Orisha to dance because the Orisha is born. He or she doesn't know already. So we have this process happens with all the community before the public initiation or the public actual born of that Orisha. So this is part of this training that I'm talking about, but the other parts, I don't know all the parts because I'm not initiated, and probably I won't talk about it when I pass because what is secret is secret. But what I see is that, so this part of this process happens outside that secret space.